All right, moving right along, let's go ahead and check our reference website to see what we need to do next. Great, we need to add a little input field here, or rather a little form that collects a name and an email and has a button that we can press. And when we actually apply PHP or something to it, it actually sends something. So let's go ahead and create this now. We also need a little bit of text above it. So let's go back into brackets. Let's go back into our index.html and let's start directly below our image class, and we're going to stay within our div once again, or rather our main container div, or our top section main. So let's go ahead and let's create a new div this time, and we're going to call this, let's do div class. Let's give this a name. So this is a class. Let's give this main form. All right, and let's go ahead and give that a little bit of space here because we're going to be adding quite a few things in here. The first of which is our HTML tag for form. All right, so we can add a form. We're going to have a few things in between that as well. And just so these are even. All right, there we go. So within our form, we can go ahead and add a few things. The first of which is going to be our header there. Let me go back and check really quickly what that says. Sign up for a free 30-day trial. I'll go ahead and just copy that so I can paste it in. Let's do an H6. Sign up for a 30-day trial. Great. All right, so now we need two input fields. And let's go back. We need a name input field, an email input field. And then we need a button. So let's go ahead and create our inputs. And to do that, we use our bracket input. And we can give this a type. So let's give this a type. And this is going to be text because we'll be inserting text here. Text right there. Now let's give this a name. And this is simply going to be name. And we can also give this what's called a placeholder, which is going to be the placeholder text that essentially tells the user what they need to be entering there. That's what we actually see. And there we're going to put name as well. So we can close that off, and we need to do our second input type. This one's going to be that input for our email. So with the same syntax, let's go ahead and put input type equals, and let's go ahead and this time we're going to use email. And we're going to give this a name of email. And let's give this a placeholder as well. And this will be, go figure, email. Perfect. Now we need to add just one last thing here. And that's going to be that third element. And that's going to be our button. So let's go ahead and add a button, which is going to be the same syntax, button. Style, because I want to style this really, and let's call this trial. Let's just give this a button style and call it trial, just to be specific. A type, this is going to be submit. And we also need to give this a value, which will also be submit. Okay, so we need to make sure we close this off and then add the text that's actually going to be within the button. So let's say start free trial. So let's go ahead and save this. Hopefully you're just following along right now. You don't have to know everything. Hit refresh, and there we go. We have our sign up for a 30-day free trial. We have our name, our email, excuse me, and our start free trial button. That when we click takes us back to the top of the page, so it doesn't actually do anything. So obviously now we need to add our styles, but we already have that big space that we want in between here. So let's go ahead and start creating these styles. We need to make them a lot bigger. Change the button to green. Let's go back in here. And I have this picture pulled up next to me so we can kind of style as we go. Let's go into our style.css all the way down to the bottom. And let's start with our P and our H6 tag that we have in there because we want those all to be white. So let me check what that was really quickly. Okay, so our class is main form, so we're going to be using that. So let's do main form, And let's do P. Let's do our H6 first, actually. So we have an H6 tag in there. And that's where it says sign up for a free trial. Let's go ahead and do a font family. And let's give this sans serif. Let's give this a font size. And let's do 0.9em. And let's go ahead and actually, let's give this a font weight as well. And we're going to do, let's do something, I'm trying to think, something thin. Let's go all the way down to 100. And let's make sure that we give this a color and that color is white. Or let's do pound 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and save that. And obviously we need to make sure that this is centered with text align center. Save it. Alrighty, let's take a look. Perfect. So we now have that looking pretty good. Let's go back here. This one looks a little bit thicker. Not too concerned about it though. I kind of like the thinner. Well, doesn't really matter. Now we need to style our input and our buttons. So let's get back in and do that. Next, we're going to use the same syntax before the button, which will be main form space button. So this will style every single button inside the main form, even though we have only one. And actually, let's start with the input. So let's do the input first and go ahead and add our curly brackets. Now this will style both of these simultaneously because it's going to it's a class, right? So first things first, let's give this a margin of 0. Let's do a width, not windows, but a width, and let's make that width 30%. All right. And let's give it a height of about 40 to make it a little bit bigger. I think by default it's like 15 maybe. So let's do a height of 40 pixels. And let's save that and take a look and make sure that we're okay. So we have these are a lot bigger now. We still need to do a couple things. I'd like to change the font inside of these as well. So we'll change the font, we'll change the font size. We'll also notice that these are touching the very left edge of the input field. We want a little bit of a space here, right? So we're going to do a little bit of a padding. And then other than that, we kind of see this border around here. We need to take that away. And we should be good to go. So let's go back inside brackets. Let's make those changes that we just talked about. The first of which is, I think I want to change. Let's first of all make sure we stay with the font family, and let's do sans serif. Great. Now let's change let's give this font size. It was a little small, so let's make this more like 15 pixels. Let's go up a little bit. I think the default is 12 pixels. Now we wanted to make sure it wasn't touching that left edge of the input field, so what we can do is we can add a padding left here. And let's make that 15 pixels so it's not touching it. 15 pixels should be sufficient. And let's go ahead, let's give this a font weight as well, and let's do the same 100 here so it's consistent with the title above. And then we need to take away that border. So to do that, we just simply hit border and we can select none, and that's going to get rid of that border. So let's save all these changes. We should see this border gone. This text, our placeholder text in here should be a little bit bigger, and this should be off to the left. So let's go ahead and refresh here, and there we go. So the border's gone, the text inside's bigger, it's no longer touching that left edge of the input field. Now let's go ahead really quickly, and I know we're going pretty quickly, but we have a lot to do, so I want to just make sure that you guys are seeing all the different styling issues we might run into and how to approach them. And lastly, of course, we need to change this start the free trial button, which needs to be, let's take a look, needs to be about the same size, it needs to be green, and it needs to have white text in the middle. Simple enough, right? So let's go back into brackets. Let's move down and let's create another one or another style. And this is going to be the same main form, and now instead of input, we're going to put button. And this will style our button for us. All right, very good. So the width, we want the width to be the same as the input. So let's go up here and let's do a width. I need to stop doing that. Let's do a width, and I believe we did 30%. So we'll have that same width. We want the same height, so let's do a height of 40 pixels. All right, very good. Now that we have the height, what else might we want to change that is the same? Let's do font family and do the same sans serif. Stay consistent there. Let's take the font size up as well. And we're going to do 15 pixels. Now, really quickly, what I'm doing here is I'm sort of doing some duplication of the process here, right? So I'm typing this in multiple different areas. I've typed in sans serif multiple times. I've typed in the 15 pixel font size several times. We could definitely just edit these in the .main form class, but right now I'm just kind of trying to move quickly. But I will highlight these best practices, and you want to make sure that you're typing as little as possible, and that if you have specific code that can be applied in multiple places within one class, you usually want to make sure you're doing that. But don't worry, for now we're fine. Let's just keep moving. We're gonna need to change the padding as well again, so let's do and we need to close that off with a semicolon. So we'll do our padding left, and we're gonna do 15 pixels. Perfect. Font weight, we're gonna keep that the same as well. We'll do 100. Let's just do 100 there. I'm trying to think what else we need. Oh, let's do a background color, of course. And if I could spell, we might be able to do it. And this is going to be here. I have the color written down. We're going to do pound 6DC 77A, and that should give us that green color. Now our color of the text is currently black, so let's change that to pound FFFFF. Perfect. And this is also going to have a border. So let's go ahead and take that border out by selecting border and then changing that to none. Let's save it. Let's take a look. And boom, there we go. The one thing I am noticing here is that it's flush along the bottom, but we seem to have a little bit of a difference here at the top here. So let's just change the height really quickly. I think I remember experiencing that problem when I originally created this. Let's change the height to 42 pixels. Let's save it. And that's a little bit better. Yeah, I'm seeing that on that one as well. Don't worry about that for now. Looks pretty good. Let's actually just keep moving because we have a lot of website left. Specifically, we have this main section here where we have 3 different blurps, which could be blog posts or they could be things about your company, whatever you want. So let's go ahead and move on to that.